Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Q&A video that I do every Wednesday, where I basically talk about what are the coolest comics or whatever you ask me, and yeah, I answer your questions. And this week I have a ton of questions, actually probably the most questions I've ever been asked. So thank you for that. And if you have a question you want answered for next week, just put it in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer it. But let's get into them. There's a lot of them. It's going to be a long video, but it's going to be a cool one. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff shown. So let's get into it. The first question comes from Kay Munin, who asked, always appreciate you answering my questions. In the last live stream, you mentioned Ashcan Comics. Do you actively collect them? No? Yes? Maybe? Kind of. So the way it works is I don't really collect Ashcans. I don't really go actively seek them out unless it's in a series that I think is cool and there's an Ashcan for it. For example, way back when, Wizard Magazine would sometimes include an Ashcan within the Wizard Magazine. Sometimes, though, they would have like a coupon that you would have to mail off and you'd get a comic back. Well, I did that once because I was a big fan of Bone and I wanted to get their kind of semi-Ashcan-y, kind of semi-comic. It's not really like a typical Ashcan because it's a full-size comic, but you'll see what I mean. So this is Bone 13.5. It's not really an Ashcan in the true sense because Ashcans are usually about half the size, like maybe about that big. But this was in that kind of genre of Ashcan-y things. Even comes with a certificate of authenticity. But typically that's the kind of Ashcans that I collected, were the ones that either were in Wizard Magazine or were of a title that I was interested in. There was one Ashcan that I did collect and actively chased after. And that was Eerie #1 from Warren Publishing. And that's a really hard Ashcan to find. There was just a recent sale that I reported on my Monday video, where I think it sold for, it was like $2,000, I think. It was pretty expensive, Ashcan. There's some other Ashcans that are cool that, I wouldn't mind having. I believe there was an Ashcan for Wonder Woman 1. And I believe there was an Ashcan for even Action Comics 1. I'm not sure about that, but I think there were. And a lot of them were created just for getting that initial title. And you just use an Ashcan to get the title for a comic you wanted to publish. And before, the copyright for it. So some of those are kind of cool. I don't actively chase after them, though. Now, the next question you asked is, which popular comic book character do you think is most likely to be completely forgotten in the future? There was actually one that kind of, I think a lot of people would see this one as an interesting choice. And it is Spawn. Spawn was one of those characters that was very popular in the 90s and almost disappeared from popularity after the movie came out, where the movie didn't do that well. And then it just sort of faded for a while. And then Todd McFarlane decided to bring back Spawn and really he tried to do this Spawn verse, and he tried to create a whole world around Spawn and, come out with various titles under the Spawn universe franchise. And I think that will work temporarily. But I don't think Spawn is one of those characters that 50 years from now people will know. And I think that's mainly because Todd McFarlane won't be alive in 50 years' time. At least I don't think so. And because you don't have that creator or some kind of torch being passed where that character, I think, will be kept going, I do see Spawn as one of those characters that maybe we all know now, but maybe in 50 years' time, nobody would know, and probably nobody would care. There's been lots of characters like that from the Golden Age that were huge during the Golden Age, but now nobody knows. I think of characters like Super Snipe, massive during the Golden Age. Captain Marvel even was massive during the Golden Age, and only recently was brought back when they did the Shazam movies, but had been almost forgotten about until that time. Another good one that's kind of being almost forgotten about is Plastic Man, a character that I really like. But how many people in the common like everybody would know Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, but how many of these other kind of major characters for collectors would most average Joe people kind of know? And that Spawn would be Spawn and Plastic Man and Captain Marvel would be kind of those ones that were massive, but I think might be forgotten in the future. Okay, so hope you like that answer. I'll probably get like a lot of people saying, "Oh, Spawn will never die." Okay, but so the next question comes from I like what I buy. Thanks for your information, very much appreciated. For next week, can you show us major Innuendo keys for Archie comic titles? Okay, yes, I will. And I have a big pile right next to me of Archie keys and Innuendo covers. So the first one is, this is Betty and Veronica 65. And you got the girls running up and being all sexy, and the boys following up behind. And it's like, how's the view up there, Arch? It's getting better and better. It's like, checking out the girls. So the idea, this one is a Dan DeCarlo cover. And a lot of his covers have Innuendo covers. This one I've seen for anywhere from $50. I paid less, actually, to 100 range. So kind of a little key for Innuendo. Here's another one. This one, mine's a little bit rough. It has a big splot on it. But this is another one. What's the guy's name? Something Laurie. Do you think short skirts make girls look taller? No, but they make the boys look longer. And so it's just another classic Innuendo one. This is Betty and Veronica number 41. And another Betty and Veronica. This is Betty and Veronica number 40. Another Laurie cover. And really, Betty, can I help it if Archie prefers me? I certainly don't chase him. Does a mouse trap chase a mouse? So, kind of interesting one. And this is one of the more funny ones. This is Betty and Me. A lot of Betty and Me's and Betty and Veronica's. But Betty and Me 16. And this is Archie. Did you have any trouble rescuing me? I sure did, Betty. I had to beat off 3 other boys. And they bold and red, put in red, the beat off. So that was kind of this is a very popular one. Quite expensive one, actually. Usually in the few $100 range for that one. Next one is, this one was kind of hot for a little while. This is Archie 511. I believe this is another Stan Goldberg. My horoscope predicted I'd be in the pink today, which has a interesting meaning. So this one is another one of those Innuendo covers, and that goes for a few $100 actually. Here's another. This is the team up one. This is Betty and Veronica 328. And it's the one where they say, look, Betty, Hillside High is double teaming Reggie. And they're also double teaming Archie. Referring to the girls double teaming. And then we got, that's another Dan DeCarlo. And is it Harvey Lucy? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. And it's Betty and Veronica number 43. Kind of like a little run there. This is another one. Mother said when she was my age, she wouldn't think of holding a boy's hand. You should have explained that you only hold Reggie's hand in self-defense. Now this one's not as big, but the little run, like 40, I think to 45 range, have like a bunch of these little innuendo covers, kind of innocent ones. And I thought this one was interesting. This is Wilbur, another Archie title, number 37. And hi, but Wilbur, darling, I told you our date would be a foursome. So just interesting one. And then last but not least, kind of the grail of innuendo covers, is this one, Archie 50. No, Archie, this isn't Veronica, but you called the wrong number. But you can come over and I'll gladly refund your nickel. So, yeah, it's kind of suggestive that she kind of wants him to come over. So yeah, so those are some of the innuendo covers. There's a lot more. There's a lot ones where they're wearing bikinis or something sexual, like, or sexy, I should say, that also are kind of big keys. I have a ton of them. I figured this was a good sampling. But generally it's the ones where the girls are either wearing bikinis or the guys are kind of all googly-eyed looking at these the girls that command the most money. So hope that helps. Okay. Leo Tor asked, Lois Lane has some great catfight covers. Maybe can you share with us your favorite catfight covers on the next Q&A? Well, I did one better than that. I'm going to show you all the catfight covers for Lois Lane. All of them. So I have almost a complete run of Lois Lane, so now I can kind of do that, where I can just say, okay, I'm just going to go through the whole box of Lois Lane and pick out all the catfight covers. Okay, so we're going to start in order, actually. We're going to do this in order, kind of. We're going to do number 21. And a lot of the time, Lois Lane would be jealous. Like, a lot of her catfights were jealous related to her being jealous. And sometimes she would get superpowers and then do these weird catfights. And you'd always have Superman kind of being the referee in between. And then, so that's one. That was number 21. Then we go with number 87. Oh, oops. Sorry. Oh, number 59, sorry, first. It's just, this woman comes over and whacks Lois Lane. So I think that's like Lois Lane whacking herself, actually. Lois, you thief, how dare you steal Jor-El? He's my boyfriend. Oh, that's Lana Lang is my rival. Yeah. Okay, so Lana Lang. Okay, so she's always getting into fights with other women over Superman. So this is like some future one. And then we got Lois Lane 87. This one where they're again, see how Superman's always always in between. This one's really great. She's like pulling the hair and everything. You got Superman kind of getting in between there. And it's like, and for that I'll kill her. It's just really great stuff. And then we got one. This is kind of a catfight cover because, like, Lois Lane is taking like a lie detector test, and then Superman is showing the catfight that picture, yeah, it's kind of funny. She's saying she's innocent, but I don't believe her. And then we got 93. And Lois Lane's not doing so well in this fight. Yeah, this other woman's basically going to steal Superman from her by beating her up. And it's kind of funny, like, you got Superman in the background just going, hey, great show. Just like he's being casual, not really doing much about it. Yeah, go ahead. You go beat up Lois Lane. Like Superman in the Lois Lane comics is not the greatest of boyfriends. It's kind of funny. And the last one is probably the most famous, and I have a slab copy of it. Actually, I gave away one of these as a giveaway for one of the viewers. This is Lois Lane number 70. And this is actually the first Silver Age appearance of Catwoman. And what better way to bring in the Silver Age Catwoman but to have a fight with her and Lois Lane. And this is actually the first appearance of the Super Pussy. So you see, it even says that. Super Pussycat, formerly Superman. So even Superman's in this watching in between. so yeah, just kind of a fun one. I like these cat fights. And this is literally a cat fight because you got the Catwoman. So I think that's special. And that's my favorite of the cat fight covers. And that's why I bought it in a higher grade. Okay, so those are all of the Lois Lane cat fight covers. There's actually a lot more. If you're going to like sort of pick a theme for Lois Lane covers, it would probably be ones where Lois Lane is like seeing Superman cheating on her. Like that's like most of the covers, whereas like Lois Lane is like seeing Superman off with some girl, or a bunch of girls are trying to kiss Superman and she's all jealous. Another thing is marriage covers, and the last theme is her torturing Superman in some way. A lot of covers about that. So it's very, very interesting, the Lois Lane covers. Okay. Next question comes from Brian Smith. I've recently discovered Classics Illustrated comics, particularly the early issues. Do you have any in your collection, and what is your opinion of the series as a whole? I have a bunch. I actually have more than what I'm going to be showing you, but I'm going to show you a few. I'm going to show you a couple titles, even though these are, it's the same kind of, like, they're kind of connected. Like, it was Classics Illustrated, but before that, it was called Classic Comics. So I'm going to show you some earlier issues where they're called Classic Comics. And then I'm going to show you some Classics Illustrated. So this is Classics Illustrated, Robinson Crusoe. These are all ones that were mentioned in Seduction and Innocent. Now, there's a couple things I'd like to mention about these books as I'm showing them. They are cool for me. I find them really cool because they're classic stories. Or they're people from history, and they're like where they're giving like historical events. And that's what I like about them. So I'm a big history buff, and I like like learning about those classic stories, and I think that's what's really cool about it. The one problem with these Classics Illustrated, well, actually there's a couple problems, but they were massively printed. So this is Classic Illustrated Uncle Tom's Cabin. It's kind of cool. And the problem with they were saved. They weren't like ones that were commonly destroyed during the whole burning of the books and stuff like that. And a lot of them were saved and kept. As a result, they're not as valuable as some other comics might be that were of the same era. Even though they are super cool, I think they're really cool. The other problem with them is they were massively reprinted, not just printed, but reprinted. So you'll find that they'll actually have like maybe 10 printings or even 15 printings of a comic. And getting that first print is a bit of a challenge. So, and you have to be really careful when buying the books that you actually are buying a first print and not like a 5th or 6th or 7th print, which can be annoying. But these are all first prints because I'm very into getting my first prints of things. Now, this is a Classic Illustrated Tom Sawyer. And again, these were all mentioned in Seduction and Innocent for various reasons. So, yeah. But you can see these are all classic stories. So, yeah, and thus the name Classics Illustrated. Great Expectations. So that was... And we got Lois Minor, or Maynor. And Julius Caesar. And these, even though they were mentioned as Seduction Innocent, they weren't expensive. Probably anywhere from $10 all the way up to about $50. Some, like the one I'm about to show you, is a bit more of an expensive one. This one can go up to like $200. I don't know why this one particularly is more expensive, but generally a bit more expensive. I didn't pay that much for it, but I'm just saying it can be expensive. This is Mysteries of Paris. And yeah, so they are ones that, as I said, it's hard to, it's one of those things where they are so common that they are hard to really see much upside in terms of the investment, but I do believe that they are cool. So if you're going to collect them as an investment, try to get the first print. Try to get these kind of ones that were historically significant in terms of Seduction Innocent, these all being referenced in Seduction Innocent, and try to get ones with key historical things that people would kind of relate to and want to collect just purely for that historical event. That would be my recommendations about it. But if you like history, I mean, they're great books. Definitely interesting. Next question comes from S. Plurge. I have a question. I have an ASM 300 in a CGC 98, but it's one of those slimmer, flimsier cases. Before the scam, I was thinking of recasing it, newer, thicker ones, but at this point, I'm unsure that the particular book was the one that got hit with the most scams. Unsure since it was the particular book that was the one got hit by the most scams. Should I keep it the way it is? So my concern for you would be that when they, like right now, because they are very paranoid about what happened with the scam, that they might regrade the book and be harsh with you. So you might send back a 9.8 and they decide, because they want to make sure that it's a real ASM 300 with no missing pieces or something that would detract from the grade, that they are just harsh on the grading of it, and they don't just reholder it, but they actually regrade it and grade it harshly with, like, and call it like a 9.6 or something like that, where they, harshly grade your book. That'd be my only concern. I would sort of wait maybe a few more months, like let the waters kind of calm, and then get it regraded if you really are bothered by the slab. Personally, I don't really care about the slabs. I know that those older slabs are not as appealing as the more recent versions of CGC slabs. The new ones do look better. They're clearer. They're more sturdy. I get it. But I would just wait. You don't want to get a 9.6 in a modern slab, because that's like a third of the value that you'd have for that book, and it'd be kind of brutal. It would kind of brutal thing to happen. So just be careful. I would just wait. If it's not, there's no real pressing reason why you need to get it regraded as a 9.8. It'd probably be actually better if you're trying to sell it now and you just want to have a better case to make it easier to sell. You'd probably do better with the older case, because they would know that it was prior to any weird things that happened at CGC, because all the ones that were involved in the scandal were in modern cases. So having the older case, you might actually make people feel more at ease at buying it in that older slab. So just something to consider. Okay, next question comes from Jeff Garty. Alan, my name is Jeff from Everett, MA, just outside of Boston. I love your videos. I love how you incorporate history in whatever you're talking about. My question is simple one. I was wondering, what would you recommend for comic slab stands? I have an empty bookcase and I want to display some slabs. Okay, so there's actually a lot of stands out there, and they actually are pretty expensive, anywhere from $30 to $40 for a stand that is designed for comic books. Okay, I don't recommend any of those. I'll probably get a lot of heat from the people that produce those, but I don't recommend them because I found a solution that costs $2. Usually anywhere from $1 to $2. And that is this. Okay, so this is what I recommend to hold the slabs. It works. They work perfectly well. I'll show you with the Superman's girlfriend. And you get the book. And you can just put it on your shelf. It's very secure. It doesn't fall down. Now these you buy at the dollar store. There's multiple companies that produce them. And they literally cost $1 or $2. So yeah, these work really, really well. I use them for all my slabs. And I've never had a slab fall. So yeah, they're really great. And you can adjust them so you can make it lean or, stand up lower or higher or whatever way you want to present your slabs. So definitely recommend those. Just go to the dollar store and look for, they're in the picture frame section. You just look for them. They're meant for putting like picture frames on, but they work perfectly well for holding slabs, and that's what I use them for. I bought like a ton of them. Like I have big bags full of those stands, because in my previous comic room, I had hundreds of them used, like all over, where I was like displaying as many comics as I could. You can see, if you look behind me, you can see some of them being used on some of the Raw comics as well. So I definitely recommend those. It's a cheap solution. And if you have a lot of books, it's a great way to display them. Okay, next question comes from my good friend Stephen, Stepify, I should say. Hi, Alan. I have some Popeye questions for you. When and where did Popeye first eat spinach and power up? Actually, so the way it worked with Popeye was he ate spinach right from the beginning. He's just a spinach eater. And at first, it really wasn't seen that Popeye used spinach to power up. And it wasn't really until about 1932 where, over time, they kind of made the story more and more about him having to open up the can and then powering up with the spinach. So that's really the origin. It was like kind of a slow, gradual origin that he powered up through the spinach. But before, he just ate spinach. And a lot of this is based on the actual person that Popeye is based on, that he actually ate spinach too. And he looked like Popeye. Next question from same Popeye questions. What was the first appearance and origin of Sweet Pea? Now, and how is Sweet Pea related to olive oil? Okay, so Sweet Pea is not related to olive oil and not related to Popeye. Neither. Sweet Pea actually basically was a baby that was left on the doorstep of Popeye in a box. It was delivered to him in a box, this baby. And he opened it up and adopted Sweet Pea as his son. And usually olive oil is the one that kind of takes care of Sweet Pea. So that's the origin of Sweet Pea. There's not much of an origin, but that is the origin of Sweet Pea. Now, Sweet Pea didn't really appear in comics until King Comics #1. He appeared earlier than that in the strips, but it wasn't until in King Comics #1 that Sweet Pea makes an appearance. The next question is, lastly, what was the first appearance of an origin of Eugene the Magical Jeep? And what were his powers? Thank you. Okay, so the first appearance of Eugene was actually in the comic strip, Thimble Theater, from March 16th, 1936. But he later appeared in the comics in King Comics #6. So that's his first strip appearance and first comic book appearance. The way it worked was there was actually a story of what is a Jeep. That was the first story of Jeep. And Jeep, it sounds like a car, like the Jeep, but that's not the. It's just his name is Eugene the Jeep. His species is a Jeep, and he's a 4-dimensional character living in this 3-dimensional world. And what happened was he was pulled in and he mixed with African Hui hound, and basically their genes were compatible, their cells were compatible, and they basically merged together, and you get a Jeep. And this was all explained to Popeye in What is a Jeep. And Jeep, after this big long scientific explanation of how the fourth dimensional creature merged with this African Hui hound, Popeye met this great scientific explanation with what is a Jeep. He still didn't know. And so then he basically presented Jeep, and they kind of presented Jeep, Eugene, this little dog-like creature, to Olive Oil as a gift, and to Sweet Pea as well. And he said, here is Jeep. Here you go. And they just basically treated it like a puppy. And he basically said it's a magical creature that disappears and reappears and stuff. That's how Popeye described Jeep's powers, and that's kind of a good description of Jeep's powers. So hopefully that answers your questions. Okay, next question comes from Matthew LeBlanc. I'm fairly new to comics, but I've been collecting sports cards for years. The grading system for cards gives a score based out of 10 on the quality of the surface, corners, and edges and centering. I was looking at Bronze or Copper Age slabbed comics the other day, and I noticed that the centering was quite off, yet the comic was graded at it as a 9/8. Some of the words at the top were even cut off. Do you personally care about the centering when buying comics? Why isn't it part of the grading system? Good question. So it is not part of the grading system. Even if you get a 10-0, it has nothing to do with centering. You would think that a 10-0 would be like perfect centering and perfect everything about it. No manufacturing issues. It is not. So the way a 10-0 works, a 9/8 is like kind of the highest grade usually, but a 9/8 and a 9/9 and a 10-0, the way it works is it's perfect manufacturing. So there's like the edges are all crisp. It's more about the quality of the comic rather than the centering or anything like that. Just are there any flaws with the edges or spine of the comic, the surface of the comic? It's and the pages. It's more about that than it is about centering. Now, that does not mean that centering is not important. So what'll happen is some buyers, especially in those higher grades when it gets to a 9/8 or 9/9 or 10-0, they will look at the centering. And you'll actually see sometimes when you're looking at those high-end books that people will say, hey, it has perfect centering. And there's actually cases even with books that are lower grade where centering is known to be an issue with certain comics. For example, Tales of Suspense 39 with the first appearance of Iron Man. Now, that book has real centering issues. Most of them were printed with the centering a little bit off, and the actual text where it's like, I forget what it says, Iron Man. It says Iron Man in quotes, little quotes around Iron Man. And because the centering is so off, you only get one set of quotes on the first set of quotes. You don't get the second after man part appearing on the comic. And people will actually pay a premium for that extra set of quotes. My comic actually, my Iron Man Suspense 39 actually has both quotes. So that extra little centering does kind of play a part in collecting, where people do want to have that perfect centered comic. But it's one of those things that does not impact the grade, which is really weird. I wish I could say why other than but that's it. That's the only answer I can give you. The next question comes from eBay Roadshow. One second, I gotta change my page. Love the videos, keep them coming. Question for you. If you only had $100, what golden age what GGA, good girl art, would you pick up? If you had 500 or 1,000. Okay, so what would I pick up for $100, $500, and $1,000? Okay, so what I'd probably pick up for $100 would be a modern slabbed high grade sexy cover. That, you know, there's like so many of those, like a Zerdy or something like that, like a Surdy cover or something like that, or you know, some kind of sexy modern one, like, or Counterpoint. You know, there's like all these kind of sexy comics, and they usually, when they're in high grade, like a 9/8, they're about $100. And at $500, I would go back and pick up things like not necessarily high grade, but mid grade, like bondage covers from the Golden Age. You can pick up those usually around $500, mid grade, and there's some really great good girl art covers that are like bondage ones. Like if you look up above me right there, can you see it? Let me just sort of like, I angle it up a bit. Like those are both right up the top, above the Slave Girl. So Slave Girl would be ones that are around $500, and then above it, those two would be around $500. So 500 to 1,000 actually. But those would be examples. At the $1,000 mark, then it's more like just cooler ones, like that are a little bit more scarce, that I would go after from the Golden Age. Personally, I'm going to go after Golden Age because that's where those are the books that I really, really like. And for $1,000, you're looking at what would be a good example? Something like Miss Fury, or a really nice copy of a Torchy would be cool. Like Torchy's right above me. Those aren't that expensive. They're really cool, good girl art though. But you could get a fairly high grade for $1,000. I'd also look at certain Matt Baker covers. Usually around that $1,000 mark, you're going to get Matt Baker for a nice Matt Baker, like not his top of the line stuff, but sort of his mid-tier covers you can get for about $1,000. So those are the ones I'd probably kind of consider. Okay, next question comes from my friend Biggie Shack. My question is, what is your drive to collect comics, or do you have a reason or method to your passion or style to acquiring these books? And the future reference, if you give Alan an excuse to show his good girl comics, he will do so. I will always do that. Whenever I have a chance, I love pulling out my good girls. But I'm like I'm driven by FOMO, I guess. I get inspired by other people. My friend Stephen Gentner inspires me all the time to buy cool books because he has such a cool collection. And I get inspired by watching some of these other YouTube channels. I always had a passion for collecting. Here's a funny story. When I went to my sister's wedding, and she came up with these little cute, like we all had like arranged seating at this massive table. And she put little cards in front of everybody's plate so that we would know where to sit. And it didn't just put our name. It put like what about us kind of thing. So it was like Alan, and then my wife. I was married before my sister, actually. She had her little card as well, and my card said the collector. Okay, her card above her underneath her name was the collected. And because everyone knew that I was a collector, I collected coins, I collected comics, I collected stamps, I collected Smurfs, I collected so many things. Everyone knew me as a collector. I was sort of the collector of the family. And I find comics, the reason I always like comics is I love the art. I have always been a big fan of the art, and the stories and the characters. I've always had that interest, and I just never had the money. I was always poor, but fortunately, I've done well with my business, and I've been able to finally realize my passion in a way. So in a way, I'm sort of compensating for all those years where I really couldn't afford comics. So until that passion fades, I will be very, very passionate about comics. Okay, next question comes from Mr. E. Low Grade King. Great video. I have a Little Abner 63. I noticed that Little Abner 61 has a Wolfgal appearance. I looked up Wolfgal's first appearance online. Fandom said it's Little Abner number 6 was her first appearance. Can you explain which book was her first appearance? Okay. This is one of those annoying ones. So if you look up on Comic Vine, they will actually say Little Abner 63 is Wolfgal's first appearance, which is not true. I actually thought it was true, but it's not true. There's certain places where they would actually say Wolfgal number 1 is her first appearance. That's not true either. So there's like one of these things. The problem is, unless you go back and read every single issue, you can never figure out where characters make their first appearances. And sometimes the online sources are not necessarily accurate. But what I've determined is Little Abner 61 is Wolfgal's first appearance. That is the Sadie Hawkins dance, or Sadie Hawkins Day comic. It's a really cool story, actually. I ended up reading it just because of this question, just to see really was Wolfgal in 61 before 63. 63 though, so Little Abner was 61. She kind of is in there briefly, where she's kind of trying to use the dance as a means to find potential people to eat. She goes there and dances with all the fat guys, and they're kind of like commenting, "Oh, why is this hot girl dancing with all these fat guys?" she's kind of checking them out to eat them. So it's really funny. Little Abner 63 though, she's on the cover, so that's her first, and they actually say introducing Wolfgal. So you'd think, oh, that means that's her first appearance, but it wasn't. I don't know why they did it that way. That's what they did. Now, Fandom is pointing to Al Cap's Little Abner number 6. Well, Al Cap's Little Abner number 6 came out way later. That's more of a modern book, where they were reprinting a lot of these Golden Age stories. So it's she makes an appearance in that. That is her first modern appearance, but that is not her first appearance. Her first appearance is in Little Abner number 61. So I hope that explains it. It's a little bit weird, but yeah, a lot of these sites that say, oh, where you look up the key first appearances, half the time you got to double check and really, really check. I've made that mistake so many times where I bought a book thinking, oh, I got the first appearance, and found out there was a earlier first appearance. A good example of that, in the one I always go on about, is Superman #4 versus Action Comics 21, I believe, being the first appearance of Lex Luthor. Even CGC can get it wrong, where they say the Action Comics one is the first appearance, when actually Superman 4 hit the newsstands first. So things like that happen. It's really up to the fandom to get it right. And people discover new first appearances all the time. Okay, next question comes from Kevin Lambert. Did you ever get burned out with comic collecting and had to step away for a while? Yes, to a certain extent. So during the 90s, I was really into comic collecting. And even though I didn't have any money back then, I was very poor, very, very, very poor. I would spend money on my comics rather than food. It was really dumb. I was like such an idiot. But I'd buy comics rather than food. But you know, that's how kids are. Kids are dumb. So I'd buy Mr. Noodles instead of real food. After a while, though, I met my wife, and I realized that I had to kind of curb my spending on comics for a little while. Then kids came, and I'd buy comics, but not as much. And there were times where I kind of overspent on comics, and I'd be like, oh, I wish, I almost had this sort of guilt. I imagine a lot of people feel the same sometimes, where you get that guilt of, I overspent on comics, and I wish I didn't do that. Now, how am I going to pay that credit card bill? And sometimes I get burnt out that way. But yeah, that's kind of one of my problems in life. I always find opportunities to get some cool book, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had more money in life, but I don't. I don't have more money. So it's one of those things where that part of it kind of does burn me out, where I think I overspent on something, or sometimes I get burnt out when I overspend on something, really buy something that I truly love. And then somebody, like a good example of this was Power Comics, which is up there. It's a great LB Cole cover. And I was so excited when I won that. But it's a low grade. It's like what is it? It's a 1/8 restored. Okay, I had to look. I couldn't see it. Okay, so it's over there. It's a 1/8 restored, and I paid premium price for it because it hadn't come up for auction for such a long time. And I was like, okay, this is my one opportunity to get this cool book I really, really want to get. And it, after that sale, because I set a new record for that book, a whole bunch came onto the market. Now, there hasn't been any since then, but a whole bunch came up, like 2.0s, 3.0s, and 4.0s, blue labels, so nicer copies, and they sold for a little less than what I paid, or similar price to what I paid. So it kind of made me a little bit frustrated with the book that I had just bought, because like all of a sudden I'm like, if I had just waited, let somebody else bought that 1/8 restored copy, and I could have, if I just had waited, I would have gotten a better copy. Sometimes I feel that way, and it makes me kind of hesitant to buy certain books, even though I really want the book. But it makes me hesitant because I'm worried about getting burned on overpaying for something that will, reappear soon after because of some big sale. That happens a lot, and it really does frustrate me. So sometimes that burns me out a bit, and so it's more money thing. I just wish, if I was a billionaire, it'd be so much easier. It would be like, I'd be like, okay, I'll just buy whatever I want. And then I wouldn't get burned out, because usually it's financial. That's why we get burned out, right? So I hope that answers those questions. Those were it. That was like a whole bunch of questions this week. I hope you enjoyed my answers. You can comment in the comments below what you thought of my answers. And if you have a question for me for next week, put it in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer it. Thanks again for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to send me a few $1 million to buy comics, I do not mind. Okay, thanks again. Bye for now.